While I lived in Northwest Territories, I moved up to the Territories in '81, and I've been away up there. I had my children up there, and then I returned in 1996 because my father was quite ill and he didn't have much longer to live. So I thought I'd get the time to spend with him and learn more about the history or whatever it is that he carries, his knowledge, and I was hoping to grab some of that before he passed on. But the reason why I came back is because this is my homeland and I wanted to reconnect my children to their roots because they haven't grown up here. They grew up in Northwest Territories, and so I brought them back here. I moved my family back here, and I was kind of questioning myself whether I made the right move or not. But in the end, I thought, oh, well, this is where I belong. This is where my roots is. And I was here first before the oil companies, so this is where I want to fight for my family's roots, because without roots, we cannot be connected to where we belong to. Otherwise, I'd be lost wandering around, where am I from? Or my kids will be like, oh, where are we from? And, because everybody in the end, life is like a cycle. They always go back to where they started. And they always have that longing for their connection to who they are, where they come from. And that's very important, because if you don't have an identity, you're lost. Yeah.
I'm curious if there's any signs or any possible way forward that could potentially stop projects in the future. If
The
you
only
could wave
ones
a
that
magic wand, or
the only ones that probably we could stop this devastation would be the government, because they're the ones that hold the title to the lands, which they call crown land, and they have all the pull. The federal government should be able to say, okay, that's enough, but no, they pass it on to the provincial government to oversee the lands and do as they see fit, to reap all the resources, to make the federal government richer because they get all the royalties. There's no royalties for First Nations. We have to make our own money. That's where our money comes from. We have to get into business with the companies in order for us to get some of that money, get some of those resources, like from our lands. It's not an entitlement to us. So I can't foresee anything stopping, because right now the world is watching us. This is where the money's coming from. This is where the oil's coming. This is where all the energy is coming from. So they're just sucking us dry here. And the earth depends on a filtration system. You know how the seasons go, 4 seasons, and well, the earth depends on the muskeg and the wetlands and everything to clean up and to filter stuff. Without that, everything is going to be all contaminated, getting worse and worse, drying up. There'll be nothing left. No more fresh water. As you can see, our rivers here is very, very low. It's that was our connection to all the communities. Now the river's very low. It's really hard to navigate and dangerous. there's no more hunting that, like, it's very hard to go hunting on the river now, because if you see a moose, it has to be at the right place, right opportunity, and then you gotta look and, you know, how are you gonna get in there if the water's too low, and yeah.
We went and looked at the reclamation loop, you know, down, anyways. So we were looking at these, you know, reclaimed areas, and curious if to you guys, if that really is reclaimed. You know, from our view, we're like, oh, it's kind of like a city park, but could you actually, you know, live off of that land? And in what way do they think that it's reclaimed? Like, is it reclaimed? I guess is my question.
Well, I don't believe it's reclaimed. I don't know if there is such a thing as reclaimed land. The only thing or way I can think of reclaim is if I reclaim my land back. To me, that's what reclaimed is. For them to say that it's reclaimed is an understatement, because that land that was there was not a pit. It was a place where they stockpiled dirt that they took from another place and planted trees on there. And they say that's reclaimed. The other part, the Gateway Hill reclaimed area that they say is reclaimed, I guess the government apparently certified it as reclaimed, but yet in our view it's not, because we can't go there, we can't harvest from there, there's no animal life. Can we go hunting there? Can we go pick berries there? Can we go there and drink the water? No, that's not reclaimed. As a matter of fact, we went on a tour there today. One of our elders found a dead frog floating belly up in that reclaimed area. And so the company has lots of answers to deal with about that.
What did they say about
Well, they didn't have any answers because they just don't know. Like even functionality of fens, or they say they built a wetlands area. It doesn't look like a wetlands area to me. It looks like a marsh, kind of. Marshes can grow anywhere, on the side of the road. You know, you see bulrushes. That's a marsh. It's not a wetland. A wetland has all kinds of medicinal plants and mosses and what have you. And yeah. So.
And a wetland also, you know, is naturally put together in a way that it's a conduit to the aquifer,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
as opposed to just something that holds water and has water plants.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm curious to know if they're gonna about that dead frog, because there's a lot of questions about that dead frog in the water because of is the wastewater, or is it processed water, or what kind of water? What does it have in there that could kill a frog? And
Did they talk about the buffalo?
oh yes, they talked about buffalo. Buffalo died. 3 buffalo died from anthrax. They even had a VP come there and apologize about the buffalo and about the blue herons, but didn't know about the dead frog because they just discovered it on our tour. Good timing, I think. It was just, I don't know. It's just, I think that things happen for a reason, and sometimes those reasons you can't just brush them off. You have to look into them and see why. Why is it?
So we spent several days at the Fort McMurray First Nation and met some people from the Fort Chipwin. One of the conversations at the healing gathering involved uniting the bands here. And I'm curious if you had any thoughts about whether that, if there's anything there that could be helpful in terms of a strategy. Is there any, if that's something that would even have a chance of having an impact?
Of uniting.
The 5 bands.
Well, the 5 bands are separated by land and water and stuff, and when we have events, and we always want to participate together. As far as healing the healing walk.
I'm thinking about it more in terms of whether there's any political influence or any legal influence that having a united group of First Nations could be different than what you're dealing with now.
Well, I'm hoping, like, you know, every time I go to a meeting, or they always talk about working together. The 5 First Nations. But when we go to a meeting, we have different, like, same values and stuff, but then we have different areas of focus and of objecting to projects. Okay, for instance, we had this one project that was close to our reserve lands that we intervened on, but yet another band up north approved or didn't object because it's not in their area, they don't use it and stuff, so it's fine, go ahead, and you have our approval. But yet we're the ones affected, and we're saying no, you're affecting our water, our traditional area, our hunting areas, and our fishing areas, so we're gonna object. So that's what separates them. It almost seems like the government and industry uses the method of conquer and divide. So they divide all the First Nations up and by projects and deal with them individually. So that's how it works. So it would be great if it was all together. But no, I think they do it this intentionally, band by band, so that they get us all disagreeing, all having different ideas and stuff.
So they're approaching each band separately. They're not
Yes.
calling them together or
No.
anything.
It's always been separately
Interesting.
because of the location of the bands. Yeah. But yet we're all in one region and we all share the same area.
And ultimately the same fate, because regardless of how much bitumen is here, eventually it will run out,
Oh yes.
and the Fort McMurray will dwindle. It has to. When the oil goes, the city will grow smaller and lots of people will leave, and you will all still be here with what's left.
I had a
Yeah, it's a ugly picture that I just don't want to look at right now. I don't want to. I'm hoping that's not gonna which is why I'm very vocal, and because there's no damn way you're gonna come here, mess up our lands, and then take off and leave us standing holding the bag. You know what I mean? It's just, there's no way that's going to happen. And as long as I'm alive, I will fight that. Because even kids know. You mess up your room, your toys are all over, before you want something, you clean it up. Right? It's only logical. And that should be the same way for companies. You mess up the land, you mess up contaminate this, clean it up before you talk about expansion or another project. Yeah.
Something that kind of resonated with me, you were talking about earlier about, family members that have to, or they work in the industry and then they start to have this, these
Mhm.
really hard feelings. Do you think in some way if people were able to have more empathy, if we started to be more connected to the land to where it does kind of hurt to do it, do you think that there's a way to do that with, I don't know, other people, if that might be a solution in some way?
Yeah, it could be. I think people need to almost be given a shock treatment. Take them out on the land, give them minimal stuff. Okay, here, you try survive with what you got. And there's no other resources around that you can't access. No stores, no nothing, or whatever. They're going to have an appreciation for what they're going to get off the land to survive. I think that's the way to go. Like I myself went on a trip. I bought very minimal stuff. And while I was on my trip, I'm like, oh, I should have brought this. Oh, I should have brought that. Oh, I should have did this. But then it is what it is. Use what you got. And be thankful for what you have. Even a little piece of string that big or a piece of wire, I couldn't just throw it away. Because that string will probably have some sort of purpose. Or that piece of wire. Even a chocolate bar. You're gone for 3-4 days, you're not going to see a store. So you're going to preserve that chocolate bar. Every day you'll have one little bite probably, and you'll really appreciate it. And those are the things that people need to realize. Simplicity is best, because you have the simple things in life, there's less stress, and it seems like the more stuff you have, the more you want. Nothing's just good enough. It has to be more. And it's that driving force of the almighty dollar that's making us all sick.
One of the things that I'm personally concerned about is global climate change and the emissions from these fossil fuel projects. Did you have any thoughts about that, or anything you'd like to share about climate change?
Well, climate change, we say the companies make their own weather. It'd be nice and sunny over here on this end. I'm going to go to Fort McMurray now. I'm driving down the highway and then come across the Dead Man's Curve, they call it, by Syncrude. All of a sudden you have these big storm clouds with rain, pouring rain, and you drive through this, and then you're coming to the Syncrude Buffalo. Now you're exiting where the buffalo statues are. Bright blue sky and sunny again. So is it? Yeah, Syncrude makes their own weather. Because all the shit they put up in the air affects the water, or the moisture and stuff, and it makes their own rain, and it comes down with all the PAHs and what have you. Sometimes it rains, you could see yellow film around the puddles, or even on your vehicles.
You're the second person today that's mentioned yellow. Yellow coating the ground, especially after a first rain.
Yep. Because Syncrude has mountains of sulfur that's just sitting there. And with all the wind, it blows. And they don't monitor like how far that travels. Yeah, so it's awful. So I think because of all the companies, they're the ones that are making the climate changes. They're the ones that are impacting the weather. In the winters, it's scary to drive to Fort McMurray. As soon as you come around the corner by Syncruit, there's snow, completely white out. You can't even see nothing. And then as soon as you pass the buffaloes, it's good again. But then when you're going to the on that straight stretch where Suncor has the tailings on this side, and you have that, the wind velocity, the way it travels, it's so fierce in the winter that your vehicle just gets blown around, and the ice on the pavement is slick. And so if you made it past Syncruit, Suncor, and then you're over the, you manage to make it down Super Test Hill, you're home free to Fort McMurray.
Just that, yeah.
Yeah.
Just to go
And
to
then
town.
and then you face all the other stuff. Yeah.
I have a question about more of the economic side of things. That, you know, the biggest argument for this, right, is the almighty dollar, like you were saying. But from what I've been told, is most of these jobs are not going to Albertans, and all of this oil, most of the oil is foreign, if not all. Do you have anything to mention about that? About Albertans not getting jobs, and even maybe Native people not getting jobs at the oil fields?
Yeah, for sure. They, of course, they bring in cheap labor because it's less costly, and in big numbers. And they say there's not enough people here to fill all the jobs. So they bring in every Tom, Dick, and Harry from every state or every province in Canada. They fly them directly here, put them up in camps. There's a 10,000 man camp across the river there. And from all over they bring these people. And our money goes out with them. And they don't come here to set up house and family and everything. They come here to work. As soon as they get their money, they're out of here. So there's a very small percentage of First Nations, the fortunate ones, the ones that are not impacted by residential schools, the ones that still have their, you know, their education, they're fighting to survive. Those are the ones that in very few numbers get the jobs. But then they have to get rid of their feelings for the land, pretend that they don't feel anything, and work like that. Meanwhile, knowing that they're destroying their land to support their family, because they have no other means of supporting their family. Because it doesn't take much to drive a truck. Easy money. You can have a grade 8-9 education, get into a training, and bang, you're out there driving truck. That easy. Instead of going to school for 5 years, 6 years, going through a trade, and then getting into work, you know. This is quick, fast, bang. You know, that's the driving attraction for our First Nations, is easy money, fast money, and lots of it.
How much would you say that that people at Fort McKay are kind of in the money, in it for the dollar, and people like yourself that are wanting to be connected to the land and the kind of the opposition of the industry?
Well, I would say 90% of our community is employed, pretty much. 10% maybe are not employed because of addiction issues, health issues, a number of other things. But the ones that are working, some have to work in order to get all the stuff to go out on the land. Like if you want a boat and motor to go out, you need to have a job, right? If you want a skidoo or a quad or what have you to go to the land, you need a job. You need something to pay off all your toys, I call them, or transportation or whatever. So I would say about half of the people, like, you know, mostly the younger generation, like the midlife generation, they're the ones that are going out as soon as they get their 6 days off. They jump on their quad, away they go for 4 or 5 days. Because they have the money to do it, they can pay for their gas, they got all kinds of stuff, and away they go, they're set. So, yeah, there's a lot of people here, a lot of members here that have all kinds of stuff like that. And that enables them to pursue their hunting and fishing and stuff. And I guess you just gotta find a balance between working and going on the land, and yeah, so there's some benefits and yeah, and some not so good benefits.
Other questions?
I think I feel complete.
Wonderful.
A somewhat impossible question I've been asking people, but I keep asking it, is if you could wave a magic wand and have things turn out in a way that would be the best for you and your community and your people, how would you have things happen?
I mean, if I could get all these oil companies out of here?
What would you see as, I guess maybe it's a redundant question, but what would you see as your
My wish?
Yeah.
Your wish.
My wish is, give me back my land and my animals and my life and my culture and everything. That's what I want. Like, go home. Like, go look for other resources somewhere else. Don't come here and take all our stuff and all our land and kill all our animals, all our berries, and all, poison all our waters and rape all our lands and take all our trees. You might as well just take a gun and shoot me. You're giving us a slow death by doing all that. You're killing us slowly. By, I would say, off. You know? I was here first. We were fine in our government. We looked after our people good. We were healthy, happy. There was nothing wrong with us living off the land until Europeans came. And look at this. We're how many millions less because of it? How many millions died in residential schools on the land or killed off? You know, those are the consequences that we suffer. And now they talk about reconciliation. How dare you talk about reconciliation when you're stealing our land and taking our land over here, and yet you're going to say you want to reconcile with us? If you want to reconcile with us, give us our land back so we can go back to the land and heal. And teach our families and bring them back to how it used to be a long time ago. Like, I know everybody says, oh, you can't live in the past. Like, that's not living in the past. That's holding on to values and stuff that you learned.
I have a question actually now that you have said that. Oh no, it's not. No, don't go away. All right. Did you have a question? I'm trying to remember.
well said?
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, that was incredible. Thank you.
Well
Yeah.
said.
Ah, yes. Are there any allies, people that are working with you or that are helpful, or is it you all alone?
I wouldn't say I'm alone. There's a lot of people out there, but they're afraid to speak up, and because they might lose their job, or be discriminated against, or what have you. There's consequences that people just don't want to face, so they're not going to say too much or whatever, and yeah, they don't want to bring too much attention to themselves, and there's not a whole hell of a lot of support out there for people that are fighting for land and culture and language and what have you. Not very many, because they've been blinded by that dollar, and yeah, and they probably would think, oh, is it worth it to do this or that? Like, what am I going to benefit from if I go down this route? I gotta feed my family, or what have you.
Have you had, just one last question, then I'll stop. Has there been, is there a benefit in your life to fighting, to being in this fight for life?
For sure there's a benefit. I see it. It's about that small probably. But the benefit for me is I don't feel guilty about what I'm not doing. And when my grandchildren ask me, well, what did you do for us? Or, I'll have some answers. This is what I did. This is how I fought for you. That's what I'm working towards. And you're alive today. And those are my benefits that I hope to have carried on through my grandchildren and the stories, and because oral history is a big part of our culture. That's how we kept our culture, as we passed it down orally. We're not about writing down and taking notes and stuff. We see it, we hear it, we taste it, we live it, and that's how we learn. Not by recording or whatever. I learned from watching my parents how to do things and stuff. How to conduct yourself on the land, and what to look for, how to survive, stuff like that. Those are what I'd like to pass down. And if it's still alive 100 years from now, I'll say I was successful. And if they still have land to hunt on and harvest on and stuff, then it'll be successful. If they have nothing, yeah.
Is there anything that we didn't ask that you feel like you'd like to say?
I don't know. I hope I covered everything. No, I think I'm good.
We are still
Just listening to the jets.
I know.
There's probably more workers coming in.
Sure.
Yeah, but I did want to mention that, you know what, I want to say that I am directly impacted in my family is because my grandson, my very first grandson born to me, was born with a underdeveloped heart, and he has undergone 3 open heart surgeries. He's 7 years old. I'm raising him as my son, and I had to go through all those challenges in medicals. So I had to get away, I had to take time away from work to look after him. So I was put in a spot where, okay, this is important. And it made me realize how important family is. And you would do anything for your family to make them healthy, vibrant, happy, you know, all the things you want for your child. Anybody wants that. And that's what I'm trying to have happen for my grandchildren. And they have lots of respect for me. They come and they like being around here. And yeah. And yeah, I'd like for them to live long, happy lives in their rightful place that they belong.
That's cool. I think that's good.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for telling us your story.
Yes.
Can you, one last thing, can you just say your name and where you're from so I don't mess it up?
Okay. Jean Lumcourt is my name, and I'm originally from Poplar Point, born and raised, and actually I was born in Fort McMurray. I was raised in Poplar Point, residential. Then I spent a number of years in Fort Chip, and then I eventually moved to Fort Mackay because my mother is an original band member here. And now this is my home.